Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Tuesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. Anthony Davis is inching towards a return. Can the Lakers hang on until he's back? That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcast. It's always free. It's never going to be behind a paywall. And Locked On Lakers, which basically, did we crack 10,000?
We're getting there. We are close. We are, I would say maybe even just dozens.
Could be you that pushes us over that 10,000 mark. And Andy, what might you or might you not win?
A tote bag.
That's right. There's only one way to find out, and that's to become our 10,000th subscriber on the YouTube channel. So the big news of Monday was David McMenamin of ESPN reporting that when the Lakers return home Tuesday, today, that Anthony Davis will begin his ramp up to get back on the floor. So we'll spend a lot of time on that for today's show. But we do want to note the Lakers did play a game on Monday night, and it was a game, Andy, where they started shorthanded. No, I'm going to just make sure I got everyone. No Reaves, no Walker, no Troy Brown. Those are your continuing injuries. No Anthony Davis, obviously. LeBron James sits this one out as well for, I think it's essentially maintenance. Give him a week, now he gets the almost a full week before he plays again.
Well, I think it is both maintenance and an ankle soreness.
I'm not saying he's not hurt. I think it's one of those, if it's a playoff game, he plays. If
sure.
It's, but this allows, the Lakers have been very, I think very, very smart about how they've chosen the days to give LeBron that break when it needs to, where you're maximizing the amount of days for him to recover. And the Lakers don't play again until Thursday night. So this provides that opportunity for him to get a little bit of extra rest, because instead of, the normal, whether it's back-to-back or every other day kind of thing, they get the extra day to do it. So LeBron didn't play in this one either. Pat Beverly left. He didn't play in the second half because of a hip injury. It will be evaluated when the Lakers get back into LA, Darvin Ham said. So by the end of this game, Andy, the Lakers were running with a big-time skeleton crew here and lost to Denver 122-109. They played hard. Nothing wrong with this effort.
Yeah, in terms of Beverly, he slipped while driving to the rim on a spot that actually I believe Russ had slipped on a couple plays before that. He went into like a splits and then kind of landed on his right side, which was the hip that was hurt. It looked really uncomfortable and really painful. On one hand, you're not going to know what's going on until he does get looked at. And this was a game that like you said, Brian, kind of scheduled loss. So there's no point in even trying to push it in this game, that in all likelihood you're not going to win. And the Lakers cannot afford to lose anybody to extended absences more than they're already dealing with. I did think, though, that there were a few, like you mentioned, the fight in this game, and the Lakers, as we've talked about all season, this is not last year's team. Like, this is a team that goes out there and almost every single game we've seen this year has put up a legitimate competitive effort, if not necessarily execution or result. The bright spot to me in this game was Max Christie. He got his first career start, with everybody out. And I thought played a really nice game. He was 6 of 8 from the field for 14 points, 3 rebounds and assists, played, his usual active and energetic defense, hit 2 threes. And this was, you and I were talking about this, Brian, before the show, and you made a really good point. This was a great game for Christie to get a start because the pressure was really low, because the Lakers went into this game knowing the likelihood of winning was pretty small. So it's not like Christie, if he was kind of sped up in this game or overmatched in his assignment or whatever, it's not like he was going to be bringing the team down. The team, because of the circumstances, was bringing the team down.
And by the way, it should be noted that part of the reason the Lakers had the flexibility to go ahead and let LeBron rest without, an inordinate amount of concern is because they had won 5 games in a row. It's because they'd gone 17-11 over their last 28 games and got themselves back into contact with the rest of the conference. Obviously, they're 19-22 at the halfway point. It is not ideal. They have a lot of work to do with a difficult January schedule in front of them. But if they're, if they enter this game, I'll say 6 games under 500 because they don't win some of these or whatever versus 2, there's a lot more pressure to play LeBron through injuries because you can't afford losses. So, I mean, the Lakers' progress over the last couple weeks is partially what allows LeBron to get very needed rest on Monday night.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say something worked out well, when the Lakers are wrapping up the halfway point 3 games below 500. But, a lot of this is the 2-10 start, and it's baked into everything that's going on right now. And it, may ultimately end up a start that the team is not capable of overcoming. But it also has to be the context in terms of the way you evaluate everything that's happened since then. And since then, they are not a perfect team. And until we see Anthony Davis back on the court, they're never going to be the most perfect version of themselves possible. But I do think, and I know we're going to talk about this a little bit for today's show and definitely Wednesday, I do think Darvin Ham is correct that they are trending in the right direction. It's really just a matter of how much can they right this ship? Like, how capable of righting themselves are they actually once everybody's at full strength, assuming they ever reach a full strength moment.
Right. Game. I mean, that the start makes it so you don't get, that margin. You don't get any more margin for error. You don't have space for, a 10-game stretch where LeBron and AD are out, the team struggles to win. Like you don't have the room for that. It doesn't mean that it can't, they can't get back into a 5, 6, 7, 8 look. And the Lakers are still, even with the loss on Monday, they're still only a game out of the 10 spot and a game and a half out of the 6 spot behind the Clippers. The Kings won on Monday, so now they're a full 3 games ahead of the Lakers. But the Lakers play the Kings on the upcoming homestand. There are opportunities for the Lakers to make some progress still, but as to use the language of Darvin Ham, they have to keep stacking up wins. And he did point out as well, and we'll get to AD after the break because that's obviously the big story from Monday. In the same space where he said, we're trending in the right direction, he also said, a lot of our record is self-inflicted, particularly after that 10-2 start, 2-10 start. The 17-11 includes multiple games you can point to, Boston, Indiana, other, Sacramento, where they could have won and should have won. Philadelphia, and didn't.
Charlotte at home.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. And some of these are pretty recent, even with the good turn. So he is not being going full Pollyanna here when he talks about this team in optimistic terms. I do think, though, Andy, if they're going to have a prayer, if it's going to really become a competitive season, there is only so long you can go without Anthony Davis and expect this to work, especially with other guys hurt. And to that point, significant news about the potential return of Anthony Davis coming on Monday. We'll get to it next.
Locked On Lakers brought to you by Prize Picks. If you've not signed up for Prize Picks yet, Laker fans, you are missing out on daily fantasy made easy. Prize Picks has the best DFS prop game for the NBA on the market. Prize Picks offers more NBA props than any other DFS prop operator. Superstar players as well as bench players. You can just pick 2 to 5 players, predict whether they will notch more or less than their Prize Picks stats projections. And Prize Picks offers projections for everything: NFL, women's college basketball, disc golf. Use the award-winning app on both the App Store and Google Play. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's safe, fast withdrawals. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com. Play daily fantasy sports First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 using the promo code Locked On. Again, don't forget the promo code Locked On at the sign up for that instant match. If you're not playing Prize Picks, you honestly don't know what you're missing.
Okay, so we mentioned Pat Beverly's injury. We noted the guys, Andy, who were gone from Monday's game with the continuing injuries. We should note that Russell Westbrook, who played the game, had a nice night, and it wasn't his fault they lost. He said after the game he dislocated his right pinky in the first half, and actually had popped it back into place twice over the course of the game. X-rays afterwards were negative, no indication that he might miss time, but A, that hurts, and B, it's kind of boss to like when you pop your finger back in, and 3, if he ends up missing time, I realize fans are up, down, hot, and cold. Some people love it. Some people can't have Russ and Pat Bev and Reaves and all these guys out. So I suspect Russ is going to play.
Yeah, I mean, say what you will about Russell Westbrook, and as you noted, I think by the point we are now, Laker fans have pretty much said everything that could possibly be said about Russell Westbrook.
There's not much left.
Dude's durable.
Mm-hmm.
Dude is seriously durable, and he's a gamer. And, Jeannie Buss got laughed at and mocked, and I think in some respects yelled at by a lot of Laker fans when she said during the offseason that Russell Westbrook was their most consistent player, their best player because of availability. And that was
it was kind of after some clarification. It was nice of Sam Amick to go back and let her have that opportunity to clarify, because before she just said he was their best, he was their best player, and then she clarified based on availability.
Right, but availability is a really important commodity in the NBA, and Russell Westbrook, for better or for worse, was the only constant for the team last year, and he's actually been one of the more constant this season in terms of players who matter. Like he makes himself available for games, and he's been playing pretty well over the last few weeks. It's interesting, actually. I looked up some numbers for LeBron and Russ, some of the two-man net rating lineups for him and LeBron together, because that's always been such a point of contention, their awkward fit last season and even for a lot of this year. And, just thinking about how much better the team has been lately over the last 10 games overall, LeBron and Russ have a plus 24.7 net rating together. Over the last 5 games, a plus 47.5, the two of them together. And then I looked up their fourth quarter minutes because, as you recall, the fourth quarter in particular was a real sticking point for LeBron and Russ not working at all. Over the last 10 games, they have a plus 9.5 net rating. And then over the last 5 games, 4 of which they played together, a plus 26.1 net rating. So the two of them have found ways to play off each other much more successfully, which is not likely a coincidence that they've managed to find these wins during this period without Anthony Davis and without other guys. It would likely be impossible.
If those guys couldn't share a court. Those are great numbers. I'll be honest with you, I was surprised. It's 129 minutes over the last 10 games with them together, and about 46 in the last 5. Those are pretty big numbers. The fourth quarter numbers surprised me a little bit, just because Russ hasn't been great in fourth quarters. He tends to struggle more statistically, at least as games go on. But if the end result is the two of those guys are playing well together, so I mean, I suspect he'll be on the floor Thursday. We'll see how much it impacts him. Not that you ever want anybody to get a hand injury, especially a point guard, but it's worse. Finger injuries, I think, would be worse if Westbrook was expected to be a shooter, if he was expected to, spot up and do that kind of stuff. Like, I'm not really sure how much a dislocated pinky even if they have to tape the ring finger to the pinky finger or whatever for support. I'm not sure how much that's really going to affect him anyway, just given how he normally plays. I mean, it's so in that sense, it could be worse. So hopefully he's out there. The AD thing, Andy, we'll get into this and then we'll break and then do some more. Like, the news from Dave McMenamin is that he is going to start ramping up that return, AD, not Dave, from the foot injury when the team returns to LA today. He didn't, though, make it sound like a return was, a couple games away. He said the organization's optimistic that he could be back within a couple weeks. So there's still a little bit of time before AD is coming back. So we will get into that next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net, your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball, even esports. They got it all at BetOnline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, which obviously you do because you are learning about this great feature with BetOnline on a sports podcast, they got those as well over there. Content is king over at BetOnline. Always the fastest, easiest way to get your betting fix. So head to the website today, use your mobile device, learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts.
All right. So to point specifically to what Dave what Dave wrote about AD on Monday, there's optimism within the Lakers that the ramp up process, which, by the way, starts with aquatic pool workouts, running on the altered gravity treadmill. There's optimism within the Lakers that the ramp-up process could take only a couple of weeks before Davis could start penciling in a potential return to game action. So, when we were talking about this before, Andy, we kind of were like, mid-January, end of January, and that kind of looks like what it's going to be. The next game is on the 12th. If you go out a couple weeks from where we are now, you're basically right at the road trip where the Lakers, take off to play Boston, Brooklyn, New York, Indiana, New Orleans. That is by the way, absolutely brutal road trip. They don't come much harder than that one. But that means the Lakers are going to be without Anthony Davis for Thursday's game against Dallas, against Philly, against Houston, against Sacramento, against Memphis, at Portland, the Clippers, San Antonio. And even though some of those are low-level games, San Antonio's not very good, Houston's not very good, that's still, the longer you go, I do think the harder to some degree it can get. That's a tough stretch of games to continue to play without Davis, who may not even be back, by that road trip. The Lakers still have a lot of work in front of them, is my point.
Well, the way I was thinking about it was, if, say, you started the 2-week lead up to the, as I called it, the eyeing day, like the day where they would eye his potential return to action.
In pencil. They're eyeing to pencil in a return.
Right. If it started 2 weeks from today, that would be the day before the Clippers game on the 24th. The Lakers then play the Spurs on the 25th, and then they begin that 5-game road trip that starts out in Boston. It's not going to be easy, like you said, and there are some important games in there, not just for the Lakers' record, but in January, they've got some opportunities to beat some of the teams that they're actually more directly chasing in the Western Conference. So, there's opportunity there that goes beyond just survival trying to move up the standings. There's like the actual teams you're going to be going up against. What I find really interesting about this is, on one hand, they have to have built up some confidence from what's happened. And I do think that they feel legitimately better about themselves. And they've had they've had a hell of a lot of obstacles thrown in their direction over the last couple of weeks, beyond just dealing with no AD. You've had LeBron out for a couple of games. You've had Austin Reaves out. You've had Lonnie Walker out. You've had Troy Brown out. Fingers crossed you're not going to be missing Patrick Beverley. But they've taken this all in really good stride. The weird thing, though, that can happen, and we've seen this before over the years, covering the Lakers with various guys out for prolonged absences, the closer you get to them coming back, sometimes that feels more psychologically difficult because everybody's just like it feels so close, and like the weight of like sort of the magnitude of everything that you've been doing leading up to that point can start to really weigh on you, and you start anticipating that return so much that it can take away a little bit of your focus in the moment. And like, look, I wouldn't blame these guys if they were looking ahead a little bit now that they've, I'm sure they're all aware of the idea of, okay, AD is actually looking now much more tangibly to get himself back on the court. I imagine that they can't help but look a little bit ahead to it because this has not been easy, what they've been dealing with.
No, and really we're talking about two sets of kind of recoveries and returns, because the first one is that 2 weeks hopefully ish after the initial missing with Reaves and Walker, like getting those guys back. It's not just can you hang on without AD, it's can you hang on without Reaves and Walker, and hopefully not Pat Bev. And like, as hard as these guys played on Monday, for example, you saw the talent deficit was pretty stark, and that's no disrespect intended to the guys who were playing. And Denver is the best team in the Western Conference, but there's a limit as to how long you can reasonably expect to go there. Now, look, this rally has, again, it gives them a little bit more space to where if they can maybe finish the month at playing 500 basketball for the rest of the month, which would be really good, given the schedule and the guys who are on the shelf. They'll still be in it going into February. And that's what this whole process has been. How long can you kind of tread water and stay close enough so that when you have a full team, assuming it ever happens, you can make some progress.
The other thing, though, about it that makes it, again, even more complicated beyond just the whole survivor element of this, because it's not an easy schedule they're going to be dealing with, you're getting yourself closer and closer to the trade deadline and evaluating where you are, what you need, the best types of players to go out and acquire, like what makes the most sense in terms of the assets you have at your disposal, and like an idea of when AD would be back. Like there's just all these different elements that I think become more complicated the longer you go without Anthony Davis.
I mean, I will say, I think by now they know, like, especially if the team is full strength, like if you can kind of imagine the team at relatively full strength, they know what they could use. They know which players that might pop up as available would be useful and which ones would be overkill. They don't need another guard. They don't, another point guard doesn't help the problem. If guys are available, they don't need another point guard. Could you use another player who's 6'8"? Yeah, even if Troy Brown is back, 6'7", 6'6", 6'7", 6'8" would be useful, especially if that guy can shoot. And so I think they're aware of that. I guess there is an element of whether or not they'll pull the trigger. But that to me is a different question, because I still think sometimes that how willing they are to make a big move, assuming one is even available, and that is always this. I mean, I don't know what LeBron is expecting them to do, and I'm not sure he's paid that close attention. Just go do something. That's your job. Go do something. But I think I'm less worried about that, because I do think it's pretty clear what they need. Now, look, if they lose 9 of 11, and then going into the break, okay, that influences it. But if they play 500, I think they're pretty much in the same. But you're right. It is a complicating date.
Speaking
no question.
Of LeBron, Brian, he won Western Conference Player of the Week. Not surprising, because his last week had been spent, as the kids would say, balling. Do you know how many of these now LeBron has?
It's some astronomical number. We actually looked this up for a show last week. I think you can find it on his Basketball Reference page.
I'm looking at his Basketball Reference. I'm asking you if you know. I know the answer.
46 or something. It's some astronomically large number.
No, actually, you're thinking of the monthly awards. The weekly awards, This is now LeBron's 66th blank conference player of the week because he's been in both conferences. Right. He has won blank conference of the month player 46 times in his career. As long as we're going through everything right now, he has also been all league in some form, whether you're talking about the all rookie team, all NBA, or all defense, 25 different times.
When LeBron gets like the notice on his inbox that he's the Western Conference Player of the Week, what do you think his reaction to that is? I mean, you and I win any kind of award, we're like, little fist pump. Yeah, doesn't matter. Like, nobody knows, nobody cares. Do you think that how much time do you think he spends thinking about, I'm the Western Conference Player of the Week?
I think one of his cars, because, he's got just a bleep ton of them. One of them is just covered in like Western Conference. Eastern
My
Conference
son is Western Conference Player of the Week.
Bumper sticker. Like, well,
right. That's actually, Gloria's car.
It's Gloria's car. Gloria James's car is just covered in bumper stickers.
That's a good question. Like, if you're student of the week at, Rochester Middle School, they give you the bumper sticker. What do you get for being Western Conference Player of the Week?
I'm sure you get some sort of plaque.
A digital watch? What do you get?
I imagine plaques. I imagine LeBron has a bleep ton of plaques in one of the rooms in his estate that he probably has forgotten that he has. He also has won, over his NBA career, 18 different awards. Like, you're talking Rookie of the Year, you're talking MVP, Finals MVP, even the J. Walter Kennedy Citizenship Award. LeBron has 18 different awards over the course of his career.
Has he done enough to be a first ballot Hall of Famer? We'll get to that on Wednesday's show. We'll tackle that. First ballot, Andy. Not is he in? Yes, he's going to make it in eventually. But on the first ballot, we'll discuss. In all seriousness, though, we will take a look at the Lakers at the halfway point. Monday's game was their 41st game of the season. It's been a bit of a rocky go, but there is reason for optimism for the second half of the year. So we'll tackle all that on Wednesday's show. We'll see everybody next time.